session at 7:13. Motion by Gutierrez, second by Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
At 7:13. Action determined in closed session was to reinstate student 18-19-20 without conditions to Abe Lincoln or Roseman High School. A recording of this meeting is being made and shall be kept for 30 days as public record. Pledge of Allegiance led by Dr. Robinson. It is sworn. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Bill Robinson, Jim Bender, and Mario Gutierrez. I hear a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion that we approve the agenda.
Gutierrez, second by.
Thanks, Lee.
All in favor?
In favor, but there is a correction. On the personnel, one of the personnel was listed twice.
On the agenda?
Yeah.
Which one, Mr. Gutierrez?
That was Shauna.
Classified or certificate?
Two.
Certificate.
She's an RU's science teacher at Tropico. So she's on the very last page of page 4, and then she's also the first person on the top of page 5.
Yeah, so we need to remove one. It's just the typo.
See what I see, guys, see that.
Okay.
Okay, if you're here, all in favor? Aye. Comments from the public? So we have two comments from the public.
All right, well, you got two comments. The first one is from Laura Kaminsky. It's a public comment for the board meeting tonight, and it is in quotes. If teachers cannot work from home, and there will be no supervision for school-age children, and we are 1 week out from school starting, so we won't be able to find appropriate, safe daycare anymore. What do we do with our kids? They also can't be in the classroom with us. And that is a second grade teacher from Rosamond Elementary. The next is from Christy Munson. Hello, my concern to be considered is screen time for elementary students. 0800 to 1400 with a 10-minute break for recess and 30-minute lunch. It seems like the kids will be sitting in front of their screens for far too long. I think that the grab and go pickups lunch should be an hour, and that's time for a parent and child to pick up their lunch and bring it back home for the child to eat, as to not leave a young child at home alone. I also believe the teacher should have a choice on where to teach from, home or school. At a bare minimum, exceptions ought to be considered. Elder educators, pregnant or nursing mothers, immune-compromised individuals, etc. Thanks for reading. Signed, Christy Muncy.
Thank you. Do we have our RTA report? No. No TSA report? CBO report?
Thank you. It's a busy and hectic time, and lots of tough and stressful incidents, but a couple of exciting things emerged in those points. And one that I'm particularly proud of is at the transportation yard, where they are talking amongst themselves and coming up with ideas for how they might occupy their time when they're not necessarily transporting students around the district. And one of the things that they have suggested, among several others, is actually transporting food around the meals. And it's very preliminary in its design and what it might look like, or if we can do it. But they, sort of stepped up and had this idea on their own. And it's, right in line with the core values that we would want to see from our employees of thinking about children first. So there's our breakfast, lunch, and dinner program that's been extended, out, getting them out in the field, and help families get up that way. It's really positive.
Associate Superintendent.
Good evening. Ed Services has been really busy over the last couple of weeks. And we have many families that are completing their data confirmation in our office. Also during the day, we have the boardroom where families can come over and complete that over here. So that way when they go and pick up their laptops, Chromebooks at the school sites, they have that completed. And this week, we welcomed our new teachers, so we've had some training. Monday was a welcome and orientation at their school sites. Tuesday and Wednesday, there was some elementary and TMS curriculum training. Today, there was ERAS training. Tomorrow is a Google Classroom and some technology training by one of our fifth grade teachers, Natalia Compton at West Park. And then Friday, there's going to be some more elementary curriculum training and an opportunity for the teachers to meet with our TA. Also, we've had some Read 180 and some 44 training for staff that are going to be teaching these intervention programs. Some ELD training for our ELD staff at Roseman High School, Abraham Lincoln, and Rare Earth. And then next Tuesday, the county is going to be presenting some ELD training to all staff, TK through 12. So, been very busy.
Service, I may have missed it. Can you say how many new teachers we have?
Oh, goodness.
Just a guess.
I think 19. I think there were 19 on the day.
Do you have an enrollment number? How many students have re-enrolled or? what's their
You know
enrollment
what?
number?
I was talking to the gals in my office, and our kindergarten numbers are pretty low. We have 75 at Roseman Elementary, and I think it was 94 at West Park. So in looking at the numbers, we've had a lot of people that have withdrawn. This is crazy. A lot that have withdrawn, but we have, it seems like we put people in, so our numbers really haven't changed too much. So.
Are we on a downward trend of new teachers coming on board? Is our retention rate improving?
Special education is always, it seems to be some high turnover for us, but we have really just a few elementary openings. We had a few at the high school, a few at Tropico. So there weren't a whole lot of, 19 sounds like a lot, but I would say probably half of those are special education. But they seem like a great new bunch, and so I'm excited to see what they're going to do for us and our students.
Superintendent's report, Ms. Gaines.
Well, I'd like to say good evening and welcome to everyone who is joining us by Zoom. And I want to just give a few shout outs to some of our district office employees. First, I'd like to say to give a huge thank you to Lisa Lopez, our supervisor in human resources. She has taken on an additional task as being our COVID coordinator, and she's really working hard to put together packets for each and every one of our employees with PPE and also up-to-date literature on how best to take care of their masks and what they need to do if on a daily basis to prevent any kind of exposure to COVID. So there's a lot of work there. She's also working with the different site leaders, including also Tim Pingelli, who is working really hard to prepare our schools for hopefully one day return of students. And so we're we're doing the distance spacing, the markings on the campuses, putting up the essential posters, making sure that entrances and exits are all very visible for the students and the staff. So I want to thank both her and Tim and his team that has, if you go to our Roseman Elementary, you'll see the different markings and things that he's been working on over there. It's quite evident already. And I also wanted to thank RTA, the negotiating team for the MOU, and Mr. Quellman. We're not there yet, but we're getting very close. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Gary Jones. We met with him yesterday, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with an MOU with our classified staff in the very near future. So a lot going on in preparation for Wednesday, but we're very excited to open school on Wednesday.
For communication, Mr. Bender.
Well, I can't wait to get something going here, or just in learning, get moving and get the teachers going and get, the children back learning again and see how this goes. It's, tough times, it's frustrating, and, just like everybody else, it's day by day. We don't know what we have to do today for tomorrow, so it's gonna be a learning curve. And I want to just thank all the teachers. I know they're going to have a rough time, and we're going to really depend on them and trust them to do what they do. And just thank everybody for their hard work.
Mr. Harris.
I just want to echo what Jim just said. I just want to thank the teachers for being patient and being able to withstand all the changes that we have to do daily. Other than that, we will push on and continue to do what we need to do. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
Hi, glad you're tuned in to us. I want to say how frustrating it is for me as I try to, I'm always looking at different health communications, and there's conflicting information about that. I'm looking at, trying to see what the governor's doing, and it's very frustrating for me. And I don't have children. So teachers that have children and you're concerned about your families, I appreciate you being patient and just doing the best that you can and the best that we can. I know it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for me, and I don't have the pressures that you do. So I am looking forward to seeing some good teaching going out, even though it's distance learning. And I hope that there's some way that we can meet the needs of people with challenges. For instance, people that can't receive internet at their house, so I'm hoping that we can do something to meet the needs of everyone. And I appreciate your patience with all of this.
I'd just like to say that to the parents and to the students that we're really working really hard to get school going and started, and hopefully it'll be successful on August 12th. I know there'll be some snags and what have you, but I'm sure everybody will be happy to get back into the routine and going to school. And I just hope that all the unions and the administrators will work together for the best and the opportunity for the students, for the teachers, for the staff, and for the community. And thank you. Mr. Jackson.
I want to echo a huge point that Jim brought up at our last meeting, that a lot of times you don't know what's going on behind the scenes and how monumental a task may be. There's lots of moving pieces to this machine. First time we're doing it, okay, sure we did it in March, but that was quick. We want to be more well-planned and do things more deliberately this time. However, information does change daily. In a perfect world, we're in control. We understand what's going on. We develop that plan and we make some small deviations. However, with as much information changes daily, sometimes we're at the end of the whip. Okay, it comes down, governor says something, Kern County official says something, and it sends a wave, a ripple, okay? And it does affect. So keep plugging along. We will get there. And a plug, there's 2 days left. Sign up to run for the school board. There's 3 open seats and there's many great minds in Roseman. So get out there, register, and come help us out.
Thank you. Okay, consent items A through G. I'm going to remove item D from the consent item. Do you have any questions on any of the consent items? A, B, or C, E, F, and G?
For E, approved services for crossing guard, is that pay as we go or is that pay for the year? Because we end up having to keep these folks till January, are we still paying for a full year of contract or is it pay for services as we go?
It's
Service based?
basically for service contract.
Okay, service based.
Yes, so, there are gaps in service provision.
Okay, so it's
I
not.
think they bill us quarterly, if I remember right.
Bills quarterly.
I think so.
Yes. That's right.
And they understand that it says we need to go.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Turn, second by.
Thanks, Lou.
All in favor?
Aye.
Business and operations, 45-day budget revision. Mr. Barr.
Good evening, thank you. This is a smaller budget presentation or of lesser significance, except this year is of particular significance because we had some statewide drastic changes between what was proposed by the governor in May and what the governor settled with the legislators on in June. In fact, the reality for our district is that we had a relatively small shift in overall in where we landed. And so because we were helped by really 3 things in the first round of budget development, one being that you had made so many cuts prior to my getting here, moving into this year, that the budget was built with a structural surplus of significant magnitude in order to get out of the hole that we saw ourselves in for 1 year. We made that recovery and then some, which meant moving into this year, the amount of growth in expenditures that happens every year just because of inflation and salary increases and benefit increases was not enough to completely fill that hole. So there was still some surplus there that gave us a cushion. So while we didn't have an ending fund balance to rely on in some districts in a healthy fiscal situation, we had a quasi ending fund balance in that structural surplus to help us out. So instead of looking at a 10% reduction, we were looking at something less. The next piece that came in and helped us was many of the dollars that were allocated out were allocated on the basis of who the children in our district are, their demographics. They stayed in line with the overall funding strategy of LCFF. And we are one of the winner districts in that situation. It doesn't always feel like it, but we are. And so some districts, because of their demographics, lost significantly more than we did, but weren't aided as much as we were. A lot of the dollars that came in were allocated proportionally to the demographics of the district. And so rather than making cuts, they just didn't get as much replacement dollars from federal funds and state funds directed to and back them. It doesn't change the fact that we're going to have to watch cautiously as we move into the spring. biggest point for us is cash flow. We'll continue to work on that and be sure that we plan as far in advance for whatever we need to do in order to stay positive. The first time we needed money, we borrowed from our own funds. We have already paid those funds back, interfund borrowing, so general fund borrowed from the developer fees, and borrowed from adult education, and borrowed from the capital facilities fund, and has paid them back already for the money that we borrowed from there. And we can do that as we go through the year. We only have small amounts of money in those pots, so we need to watch that. The other piece of good news is we are fully repaid with the county office for our loan. And that's a huge amount of progress, a huge amount of worry that's out of the way. And so moving forward, there are other options for how we can access money for cash flow if we need it. And we will look at them as we get there. They range from borrowing from other governments, whether it's the county office or the county treasurer's office, or even the state. And not the draconian measures of the state in receivership, but borrowing from the state treasurer's office for fiscally solvent of the cash because of the structural problem budget. Having said that, our budget reflects stability on the expenditure side. There was no need to make any reductions as a result of what happened in June. There was no need for really making any reductions at all from the original budget adoption in June. We were lucky in that sense. We made allocation shifts more than we made anything focused on reductions, which was a good place to keep the district. Having said that, this budget reflects all of the money that we were told by the county office, do not assume is yours until it's 100% signed off on by everyone that needs to sign off on. So when the governor signed the budget, the learning loss funds, the CARES Act funds, the restoration of funds like the ACES program, which was one of the places we were to touch, CTE restorations, all of those things fell in place and are reflected in here. We were lucky with the structures of some of our grant funds that they're not entirely focused on supporting staff. They're heavily focused on supporting program growth and program development, particularly at CTE. So rather than having to cut programs, we were looking at pressing pause on some programs. So now we're having some restoration opportunities there as well, because the dollars get back in the grants. So what the state requires us to do, if there's a significant change between what the governor proposes in May, and what the legislature approves and the governor signs in June, is that we create a new budget adoption opportunity or public document disclosure reflecting those changes. It's either minimal increases in some areas of revenue, and the most significant is in the last category of other local revenues, and that's where you see a lot of your grant funds recognized. And $2.3 million to, especially in the $2.3 million of restricted revenues. Which is it there. Is official, this is an official budget adjustment, so the board is asked to move to make to recognize the changes that have happened in the budget as a result of the state's adopted budget and approve this budget amendment, and then the next opportunity to revise the budget and evaluate where we are based on how the beginning of the year actually panned out and played out. Once we get it going, this first interim as normal. This is just a clarification, public disclosure of where we are. Opportunity to reiterate that the stability that we saw is still a reality.
In that case, I will make a motion that we accept his amendment or budget
Revision.
revision
second by Brenda. All in favor? Approve the revised board policy. Title IX new regulations, Ms. James.
I think it's B. B first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, consider approval to apply for the 2020-21 California Department of Education District Consolidated Application and Reporting System of Categorical Funding, State and Federal.
So this item is actually an item that does not belong on the agenda. I should have asked to pull it at the beginning of the agenda. I believe that we need to do the application now and public revelation, and it actually is the other end of the year. So I will bring that up at that point. This is an opportunity to recognize the fact that we do receive significant amounts of federal money through the title programs targeted at meeting the needs of specific children. And we are looking at, as we built the budget this year, we looked at the ways in which we spent the money historically, done some analysis on what we think might be a better reallocation approach. So we're going to look district-wide with that program a little bit, and we will be working with administrators throughout the district to support their needs, but also still continue to use this money a little bit cautiously as there is so much uncertainty in this year. And it is still the goal that overall throughout the budget, sites will be given site-based budgets that they will manage themselves. It's important that they have some latitude of their own. But that's a new concept in this district. We want to make sure that we support them through it and that they understand what it is, what their authority is, what their limitations are, and also that they have the opportunity to think through, if they're given X number of dollars, how they might spend those dollars, and that they're not simply thinking that means supplies, if that's not really what they need to spend the money on. They have opportunities to shift the money around as they're going through the year to create a process for it. The title resources will be one component of supporting that.
Does that mean they can hire personnel, like foods or things like that?
Potentially over time. At this point, we won't have enough money to allocate out to sites to support I was going to say much, if any, but we really won't have money at site level to support staffing. Over time, there's always potential for that, but we're not there yet.
So what are you asking for approval?
I do not need approval.
This is just,
It's an action.
Turn it into information, and
Was proving for him to apply for this.
Do you need to take an action item on this? I'm sorry.
do we need to take an action if they have to, I'm sorry?
Yeah, we have to take an action item.
It does say there's an action here.
That's approved act, okay.
so asking for approval to continue on
To apply.
The-
So it's consider approval to apply for the 2021 California Department of Educational District Consolidated Application and Reporting System for the factorial funding of state and federal programs. So your motion.
I'm going to motion that we allow him to apply for our categorical funding.
Second by?
Me.
Turn. All in favor?
the last man at the end of the table.
Which one? Which table? Yes.
Item 8, general, approve revised board policy, Title IX, new regulation changes, Ms. James.
Yes, this is the board policy that we informed you at the last board meeting, that you would only get to have one reading because unfortunately, we just got the board policy. The state just released it Friday evening about after 5. And so this is the one reading, just in a nutshell to give you a little bit of background on this. It's just has to primarily deal with the federal government's definition of what qualifies as sexual harassment and the policies and procedures process for filing a complaint on that. So that's primarily what it is and how it is investigated.
Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Second by Bender, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approve first reading of the board policy 0470 COVID-19 mitigation plan for states.
Yes, this is a board policy that is somewhat generic in nature, but it's pretty comprehensive if you read this board policy, pretty much outlining what districts should put in place or be doing to for a safe learning and working environment, to create that environment for the teachers and our students. Also, it talks about the social emotional, the anxiety that our children may suffer from being out or maybe being in a blended model, and how we need to deal with that. And of course, the instruction and scheduling for what's best for the instruction for the students, and also professional development that, as you heard Mrs. Hargis say, we've been doing a lot of to help prepare our teachers to provide that distance learning and do it with, with confidence, and to really make sure that the kids are getting exposed to their curriculum on a daily basis. So that's what that board policy pretty much covers.
Yes.
So I have a question about one section. It says the staff shall pay careful attention to students' increased mental health concerns. Okay. It's page 52. And so that just says staff. So it means the custodians need to pay attention to this, the
Well, I don't think
office
it,
staff.
although there have been many custodians over the years who, while in the cafeteria, build relationships with children. I don't necessarily mean it's isolating the custodians from that generic word of staff, but when we talk about staff, it also means it could be site administration, the teachers, the school psychologists, the mental health therapists, the school nurses, of course, the admin. There are several people, paraeducators, could all become aware. So probably the word staff is used in lieu of calling out all of those individual classifications and then maybe missing one.
Do we have any kind of like a red flag report that maybe we should look into this student because this such and such incident occurred or whatever? Do we have some sort of plan for that?
Well, I think, I don't know that we have a plan right now, Dr. Robinson, but we also need to keep in mind that when we do become aware of certain issues with a student, there are HIPAA laws that require us to, there's some confidentiality there that may come into play, and we have to be cognizant of that we don't just inform the entire staff or all the teachers until we really know. We first have to get that child help from the right people, whether it is the counselor, the psychologist, or the mental health therapist. That I think would would depend entirely on what are the issues with the student. And once we become aware of them.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was some sort of a way to know who do I bring this, to whose attention do I bring this to, you know?
Well, I think,
I think if it was a part of the staff to go follow the chain of command.
and
For
I,
me, I would report to my supervisor and let them take over.
Yeah.
From there.
I can say that our school psychologists and our mental health therapists, we have an additional one this year that we've hired. In the past, they stay very busy in dealing with just these sort of circumstances that come up, and usually it does start with the site administrator becomes aware, and then it's trickled down and given to the right person who can best benefit the student.
I'm just hoping that we have some sort of a plan to discreetly do this without, without violating any of the HIPAA things, but to make sure that if children have issues, especially since there may be more this year than usual, that there's some kind of
Protocol.
yeah, protocol.
And I will look into that. I'm sure I'm sitting here, and perhaps if our director of special ed, although it's not a special ed issue, but she may be able to say that we do have, as she oversees the school psychologist, that we do have something very, very much like what you're talking
Right,
about.
I know
already
that
in place.
we do have a pretty comprehensive plan on suicide prevention that's been laid out. But, I just don't want other issues to get lost.
Definitely something I will look into, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Second, review, reading, and approval of board policies, Ms. Gaines.
Yes, these are this is the second time you're seeing these. And just to refresh you, option 3 on board policy 0430, we have to select option 3 because our SELPA office is at the Kern County. So that's just very clear there. And then option 2 under administrative reg 1312.3 uniform complaint procedures. The reason we chose option 2 is you as a board selected this option because you wanted to be able to have any appeals come to the Board of Trustees, and that was clearly option 2. The rest of these are the impact aid, the new regulation. It primarily talks about students who may be living on federal government land, including any American Indian students we have that might be on living on Indian reservation or Indian land. So that's pretty much what the impact aid is talks about. So this is your second time to see these policies.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion on the
Second reading,
second reading.
second by
Second.
Atkinson, all in favor? Aye.
This for the board policy. Person that make a motion.
Annual review of board policy 9270, conflict of interest code, Mrs. Gaines.
This is the board bylaws, which are required every 2 years to be approved, that really outlines the conflict of interest for board members. In this document, it talks about fair political practices, how as board members, you have to complete a Form 700 annually. And so this is just for your consideration. It has to be approved this time, no later than October 1st. So what I thought we could do is we could put this on maybe a closed session to look at the document more in depth, giving you some time to prepare between now and August 19th. So if you want to change something, I know that when it outlines the personnel, that's not completely accurate any longer with the number of directors, et cetera. So we need to update that. And there may be some other additions or deletions that we need to make. So right now, if you would just basically review the document.
We will do that. Personnel items. Approve the following listed personnel items. Amy,
Yes, as you can see, it's pretty clear. Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez, for catching that duplication. We've had some employees retire, some resign, some that we've transferred, some of the paraeducators and redistributing them to all sites, all 4 sites. So some were transferred and pretty much some are moving over on the column.
a shout out to Esmeralda Bourne. She's 6th grade teacher at Carpenter Middle School. She's hired. Glad to see that. Happy to see it. Any questions?
I just, with Mr. Tanksley, again, I just want to go on record saying that, are we being careful with our hiring? We just got good with our budget, and I don't want to overextend ourselves and hire more teachers and have to do a layoff in a few months or something. So I want to really be careful. I know we're looking for work for other people and move them around and keep them busy and keep them employed. I'm happy to hear that we have the opportunity to do that with the unions, that they're working with us to do that. That's very important in times like this, that we can interchange in jobs and do different jobs to help out the district. But I want to really be careful that we just don't overflow ourselves. Is it 1-for-1? Are we getting one retired and bringing on one?
Typically, that's what happens, Mr. Bender. And keep in mind that every board meeting on your agenda, you have a personnel items to approve. So for example, a science teacher may have resigned back in June, and we're just replacing that position now. You know, it does take some time to find people that are qualified in specific content areas. And so that's why it probably looks like that, although there's only, I think, not that many hires, but yeah, there are, I guess, in the when we look on the second page as well. But some of them are just positions that where people have left.
Okay.
Mr. Barth, is there any way possible HR, when they develop this, or you, whoever develops this, they can maybe put an asterisk if it's a newly created position, so it stands out clearly to us, or some annotation, just an asterisk will work just there, so we know if we see that, that's a newly created stipend or a newly created position. And that'll make it easier for us to weed through versus remembering back 6 months, hey, a science teacher left. Now we're on. I mean, it's not that many. Like, I think the only additions you've had this year are the grounds, one grounds, and
Yeah.
and
Those are
mental health.
restorations
There's not
too.
a lot of folks, probably
Right.
3 or 4
Right.
positions. But, you know, as Mr. Bender said, that's our most expensive cost is manpower. And if we add too many, we go down the road of being millions in the hole again, so.
And, you know, Lisa and I talk frequently, you know, and Lisa reports directly to Barbara, so there's sort of the triangle there, and I think that's a good relationship where not everything is under business services. And so there were times when we slowed down some of the hiring processes this year because of what was going on in the budget. To make sure that we had a good, clear understanding of where we're gonna land and try and match things. So it was a triangular sort of conversation a lot of the time about who we were posting and what we weren't posting, for those specific reasons. But in terms of marketing the thing, I think I would leave that conversation to Superintendent
Okay, yeah,
James and
Just
Lisa
something
too.
to,
There's always
just
a way
so
to
we
do
know
some sort
there's
of
something
key, absolutely. We can
because
do that.
it is a concern, because when we hear people talk, even when the unions speak, they kind of get the impression that once we're out of the hole, which we are now, that the floodgates are gonna open.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case, because there's still negotiations, because gotta be happening, pay, stuff like that, that has to be taken into account. So,
Absolutely.
all the people out there that think that the floodgates are gonna open now that we're paying off, and we're gonna hire back to where we were before, isn't necessarily the case. And, this is a business, and it's gotta be looked at like a business, even though it is a governmental agency, it's still a business, and you've gotta operate like that. And, so for all those people out there that think that's the case, it is not necessarily the case. So, understand.
And we react to changes too, right? I mean, we have a huge one right now, so things aren't trying to always look the same as they did.
And I just want to say, piggyback on what Mr. Tanksley and Mr. Bender were saying, but I want you also to know that as of today, we're a week out from the opening of school, we are still in need of a couple of more teachers. So we are still.
I understand that, but we took the big hit, and I'm just gonna throw out numbers, I don't know what they are, I would like to know maybe. When we downsized, we ended up with 150 teachers, or 100, just say 200 employees in the school district. Are we still at 200 because nothing's any better financially? Yes, we're out of the budget, we're doing good, but we're still treading water here. So are we still at that number when we left a year ago? To me, we should still be pretty close at that. I understand we're gonna have to hire a couple, but we should still be at that number of employees.
Well, if anything, we're considerably under that number.
Okay, under or just, that's,
I would say in teachers, we're under,
okay,
and even classified staff.
okay.
Associate Superintendent Hargis was just reminding me, we have a number of unfilled positions, CSOs, ACES positions, and there's a few others too, that people left the positions and we didn't refill.
And from
And
the
we're
public,
thinking really hard about filling them, but being careful with all this going on right now, we may not quite need them.
Well, and that's the train of thought is we haven't filled them because we don't need them.
so from that, you heard the word downsizing. We're not downsizing, we're right-sizing.
Right, so,
So let's not stress we're downsizing. Sure, there were cuts made, but we're trying to find the right size for this organization and for this to function. And it may be significantly less than what in the past we had under balloon growth. So we'll use the word right-sizing from now on.
right, so,
Okay. And I was gonna explain over to Mr. Bender was that a lot of the teachers that are actually all this hired this were working for us as of last year, but since they were on a preliminary, we have to let them go from last year's contract, and then we bring them back in this year. So we rehire them back.
As long as we are talking about that, I would be advocating at this point for those two elementary PE teachers, but considering the position we're in. I'm saving that for next year. I just wanted people to know that I haven't forgotten about it, and I will be pushing for that for, next year, because I think those are important positions.
I'll make a motion that we accept the personnel as written.
I second it.
Amanda, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need to abstain.
One abstain. One abstain.
Did you have any other questions before we make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I might have missed the opportunity, but I like looking at the purchase orders. I look for the comma, then I look for numbers before that comma. And we've got a couple big ones here that I'm concerned about, and I thought I heard before we talked about it that they weren't that high. Our modular leasing, we've got about what, $215,000 that we're leasing these. How about the ones next door? Are we being credited for that through the school that's using them? Are we leasing them? Are we renting them? Are they paying for them?
They have a lease agreement with the district where you can buy the space for the rent from the district. Every single one of these buildings, depending on when it was purchased, what the square footage is, kind of set up, it has a different lease price to it. And we actively manage the process of bringing buildings in or removing buildings as well. We removed a couple of buildings this year, for example, that were no longer needed, and so that shortened the lifespan of that lease, saving the district some money. But it is true. These buildings like this are expensive.
Yeah. So we've got what, 10 units over there? They shouldn't be costing us anything, right?
I'm actually not aware of whether or not they use that.
I mean, as many as there are in this school over here that
Well,
we're
I could
leasing
say
out.
all of those buildings are not included in that lease. Some of them are retained by the district. But
We own some of them.
no, we always some of them, but
They're not leased out.
they're not really leased out. There's, I think maybe two.
Oh, okay.
And they're just for clarity, but the.
But the ones that we do lease out is 100% paid for.
I'm not certain. Follow up that.
I want to say when they looked at it, they looked at the cost of the lease plus possible power.
Water and power, I thought.
I believe, it just wasn't, I think we tried to slide cleaning in there too, but we weren't successful, and I think it was,
They were required to bring their own custodian.
yes.
Because that's a huge number there. I was under,
refer to specific details of that for you. It was a lease that I signed on for. It was up prior to my here, so I haven't really dug into it. But I will follow up with a Friday letter with the details. So we can have a full reminder.
and again, as long as you look into it, I trust you, that's what you're hired for, that's what Barbara's hired for. I just want to make sure that we're aware that buildings should be paying for themselves, and we should be paying for them.
Well, we've been given sort of kitchen time, right, with the facilities use throughout the district, and we're not getting pressured right now because of COVID for people to access the facilities. So we need to look at that in a mindful and fiscally responsible way in all aspects of how we rent out our facilities. So we'll be looking at that over the course of this year.
The next item was 55,500 for attention to attendance. What is that? What is that?
That is the system that we subscribe to from the Schools Innovation Advocacy Group of California. What they've put together is a beginning to end script for the district to follow, plan for improving attendance of students. And it specifically addresses a number of different intervention points at an escalating level to target students who have evidence of leading to and then leading to situations of short.
So it's like a program that we're paying 55,000 for,
Yeah, we have
a yearly contract with them.
3 years.
That's for 3
This
years,
is our second year with them.
and it's 55 every year or for the 3 years.
It actually goes down. Last year was 60. This year it's 55, and I'm not sure what it is next year, but I know it goes down.
Is that paid with restricted funds? Because that's one of our goals, to improve the attendance, to improve money coming into the district. Is that paid for?
Is it part of the LCAP? It is embedded in the LCAP.
And Mr. Bender, I don't know if you, I wasn't listening to everything that was said to you, but A2A creates all the letters that go home to the parents. They really, really do a phenomenal job of collecting data on how our kids, which kids are attending, which kids have certain tardies. So it's really a worthwhile program. How effective is it going to be during the distance learning? I couldn't say because we have a contract with them, so, but under normal circumstances, we readily get data on, I know exactly which schools have met with the parents whose children have excessive number of absences, and that data, I can have that data just very, very quickly.
So they provide all the data in that for us and do all the
And
work?
they create all the letters.
Okay, it's just not a disc that they sell us
Oh,
and
no, no, no.
we
no.
download it,
No,
and print off some copies?
No.
I can tell you, Jim, at one time, I was the bubba for Roseman that did that, and I probably spent with April and Maya, and who, I forget who was before her. But by the end of the year, there were 2 3-inch binders full of those letters that I had to generate, call the parents, call them 3 times, they never answered me. There was a process, and it ate up a big part of my day. So I think that streamlined it, because I think Holly was doing it, she said it streamlined it greatly. Because even from the hardest side, we got a note at 3, and then we got a note at 5 and 10. So we had to push letters out at certain times, because we generated those letters versus it being system generated. So it is a time saver, which is a money saver as far as
Right.
salary and stuff like that. So I
And,
think it does make its money back.
and we get paid for their attendance
Okay.
because if they don't attend, we lose money. So you have to realize that it's also generating some, revenue by getting kids back into school that maybe might have been lost track of.
So maybe at the next, or you can give me the information on the enrollment number of the students. Like to know that.
And I think next meeting, President Sanchez will be a better time to give you those numbers, because they're still coming in right now. Some people unfortunately will wait till the last few
Ready
days.
to enroll.
So,
We'll always have that group that always is like a week or 2 later. There's a lot of
School started. Because how is that gonna be? Is it just by them enrolling, or is it gonna be like the first day that the teacher logs on with that student? How is that gonna work? Because normally it would be when that child's, sitting in class.
Right. So really the school site, if the teacher, however this pans out, working from home, working at school, they'll probably get an email from the office to say, this is your new student. They can scan in, something with all of their information so that, they know that, you need to get a hold of this parent, get them as part of your Zoom. So they'll receive all of the information that they need to get the student started.
and Mr. Bender, do you want to ask about the laptops?
No,
You don't?
you did a good job. You found some good ones. I know we're gonna need them.
You want to great.
There's no sense arguing
Well,
about
that's our
that.
one-time CARES fund. That's one time that we, that money has to be spent by December 31st.
30th.
Hmm?
30th.
30th, there, thank you, Jonathan, 30th. Yes,
The
that's
county
very,
made such a production out of it, I have to say it.
yeah, he's absolutely correct, has to be spent by December 30th. And ask him if he's received it yet.
No,
No,
but we're spending it.
We're spending it, we were told to spend it. So,
Yeah, we've been down that road, right?
No, this is a safe instance of that, I mean, and we schools do this all the time, we do it with our federal money as well. If we haven't spent every dollar of federal money that we have in the bank right now in a specific program, we can't draw down more until we do spend it. So we have to constantly go into a deficit situation before they reimburse the district for the money spent. So we're sort of used to that pattern. when you get in trouble is when you assume that you've got a grant before you have the actual grant agreement or confirmation award letter, and you start spending it. So you have to be careful, very careful at that point.
So I have a question about the, item D that was tabled for now on Avid. Are we reevaluating how Avid's going to work this year? Is that why we have to table that?
No, that's not the reason why, although Leanne and I discussed Avid a little bit, because we are in a distance learning mode right now. We felt that our goal was initially, before this all happened, was to take X number of teachers to Summer Institute, and from elementary, middle, and high school to start our Avid program to build capacity in our kids at the elementaries before they came to Tropico and before they entered the high school Avid program. We have since decided that maybe in lieu of everything going on right now, that we would hold off at the 2 elementary sites, even though there are teachers there who you can walk in their classroom and see Avid strategies being used. We really want to build a strong Avid at Tropico and also at, we believe we have a pretty good Avid program at the high school. And so some of those fees are not, we haven't paid those fees yet, and Leanne, you wanna jump in?
Yeah, so we'll bring it back on the 19th, and it'll be about $15,000 less than the elementary.
So how does that work with, getting their binders updated and everything?
Well, we'll have to be a little bit creative with the binders, but they will still be able to do tutorials. They'll still have some Avid tutors. Through the Zoom, they can do little breakout sessions. So, with their Avid tutors, Tuesday, Thursday, when they do tutorials, they can still have a math section or a science section where they're working in those small groups. But, like everything else, it's just gonna take some creativity.
Yeah. Well, I think teachers are one of the most creative people I know.
That's right.
And so, and they are not ashamed to steal from each other. So we get somebody that's really good at it, we just steal their knowledge and things. So, okay, thank you.
I would move to adjourn.
Motion by Katara, second by Bender, all in favor?
Aye.
At 8:16.